Hey everyone, how's your day? TVI here, blowing in with a rankings video of best to worst Pokemon types. Pokemon types are awesome. They define the characteristic traits of Pokemon and where you would commonly find them. Ground Pokemon usually reside underground, where water types are usually found near bodies of water. The whole premise of rock, paper, scissors gets taken to 11 when attempting to go and get certain types of Pokemon with your own. Not to mention Pokemon can have two types, meaning the strategy behind besting other types is endless. So today I'm here to rank what I believe is the accurate order of all the Pokemon types, from most favourites to least favourites. Starting off, we have Ice, and to put it bluntly, I'm not a huge fan of this type. Ice Pokemon make up the least amount of Pokemon in the entire population, so there really aren't many Pokemon to use or utilise when playing the games, or experience when watching the shows. Don't get me wrong, there are a few Ice Pokemon I like, but when there are so many other Pokemon that aren't Ice types that I have a lot more interest in, then the Ice types just received the cold shoulder. As for the actual typing itself, it's alright offensively, doing well against Grass, Flying, Ground and Dragon. However, when picking a team of 6, I usually have other counters that effectively render Ice Pokemon useless. Also, it only resists itself. Every other type except Normal has at least 2 resistances. At least Normal has an immunity. This means for me, Ice Pokemon just don't cut it when trying to find a good Pokemon that fits any criteria when either building a team or finding a favourite. For me, this used to hold the title of worst typing for several reasons. It was such a useless typing that I really couldn't bond with, especially when many of them look like this. Also, I'm not keen on the fact that so many bug and grass Pokemon share their other type slot with the poison typing. It gets tedious after a while seeing the same type combo on a set Pokemon, as it really takes away the potential of certain Pokemon to have a different type combination that avoids copying what already exists. Make the Spinarak line bug normal types, and make the Fungus line grass ground types. I don't know, just stop slapping the poison type on Pokemon that could have alternate typings that are either never used or rarely used. The trope of a poison type is that it can inflict the poison status, which I guess is pretty cool, until you realise that nearly every Pokemon can do that thanks to Toxic. What's the point of even having a poison type on your team, when it's only good against grass, does terribly against 5 different types, and has an average resistance compared to other types? It's something I used to say and think, till up to Generation 6, when everything changed. Yes, the poison type got some redemption when Gen 6 came out, with the introduction of the fairy type. I didn't actually use any poison types due to the limitations I had in that generation, but you best believe that my team were packing poison type moves. It was a solid count as basically every fairy type, except the ones we don't speak of, and could even surprise my opponents when the least likeliest non-poison type Pokemon was packing a Sludge Bomb. This alone pushed Ice type down to the newest worst typing in my own opinion, where it will stay until either more enjoyable Ice types are created, or when Ice becomes as useful as poison is. Normal is the platypus of the Pokemon world. They don't do much. Why isn't there a platypus Pokemon yet? They're bland Pokemon, usually with bland designs, and are found everywhere in any area of Pokemon, especially early on in the earlier routes, where the common rodent or bird from every region like to make a not so surprising entrance. They don't do much for me either when picking a team of 6. Unless paired with another typing, I barely use them. Unless it's for a mandatory HM use, try and challenge like trying a Bidoof army speedrun, yeah! Sure, they get a range of moves to use, but most of the time they're not stab moves, and they're more effectively handled when used by the Pokemon who will receive that bonus attack. However, what gives this type the edge over Poison and Ice is that it only has one weakness to Fire, and even an immunity to Ghost to boot. Even other attacking moves are neutral damage, which is very useful considering other types could get one hit with how many weaknesses they have. Also, there are a few normal types that I have really taken a liking to, and have provided me with some love to the typing and memories of how I can't completely disregard the normal type as the useless type. Ah, Fairy. How you changed the game on a whole new level, giving an even cuter feel for collectors of all things cute, updating information on the Pokemon meta, and giving all Dragon Pokemon a run for their money. I remember seeing the fairy type for the first time and getting really excited that previous Pokemon would get type changes, and changing the way people would alter their teams. I was no exception, for I found Azul early on into Pokemon Y, and was eager to exploit its fairy capabilities. Despite the lack of Pokemon in the fairy department, it was a good start for trainers new and old. Fairy was definitely needed when looking back on generations filled with powerful dragon Pokemon that were used by every trainer and their mum's child. Hitting dragons where it hurt, as well as making fighting and dark types fearful of the elegant nature of a fairy Pokemon, makes this a very useful type. However, because Fairy had been introduced far too late into the game, it meant I hadn't grown much of an attachment to it as much as all the other types. I was very comfortable with how the type matchup chart used to be, and after several gameplays without any interactions with Fairy types, it was a matter of being familiar with what I grew up with that ultimately prevents the Fairy typing from getting any higher on this list. Now this one's a little controversial. Despite how cool looking and overpowered dragon types are, it's because I couldn't gain this incredible power that dragon type is so low on this list. I always hoped to use dragon types on my team, but they were always too ridiculous to obtain or too much investment to deserve a slot on my team. While dragon Pokemon are cool, and I appreciate what they represent in the world of Pokemon, I can't ignore one giant flaw it has with its typing. It only counters itself. Sure, it can resist a bunch of stuff, and paired correctly with another typing, it can make it an opponent you really don't want to face. However, dragon Pokemon only exist to counter other dragon Pokemon. We now have Fairy for that, so you can counter other typings as well as just dragon, and can resist the same amount. By this point, I'm aware I've probably upset a lot of dragon fans out there, but there are just too many types I like more, and are far more capable of running that team of 6. That dragon barely beats Fairy on this list, which is the only accomplishment I guess it gets over Fairy types. Now I get into the meh section of this list, where I don't necessarily dislike a type, I just have little reason to place the type any higher up because my favourites shunt them down. So to start off is the dark type. Nothing too special about it for me, a little too edgy for my liking, but it makes for a good anime partner Pokemon for characters who are a little more dark and mysterious. However, I do enjoy equipping my non-dark type Pokemon with moves such as Crunch and Sucker Punch, just for coverage against Psychic and Ghost types. Although, I don't often get to see Ghost or Psychic types during a run, and when I do it usually has another typing that I have better counters for. Really, I'll only have 1, maybe 2 dark type moves on a team if I ever want to go for coverage. What I do like about the dark type is its immunity to Psychic. I had a Pangoro on my team that I used online so many times, and so many people would try to hit me with a Psychic move, meaning I'd always get a free move in. Seriously, it was boring after a while. However, again thanks to Gen 6 with the Fairy type, it made Dark Pokemon less useful for my liking. It was only weak to fighting the bug, but now these emo-like Pokemon also have to avoid the Drag Queens. In the end, Dark can't get any higher on this list until something incredible happens. I'd love to see a Dark type gym at least, but I guess the Elite Four will have to manage the Dark type expertise. Now Ghost did share the loser spot with Poison many years ago, as I always associated the Ghastly line with being dual Ghost Poison typing, and I wasn't a huge fan of that, although I couldn't ignore the awesome fact that Ghost Pokemon can phase through solid material, and levitate fairly high in the air. Sorry Sableye. However, as the years went on, this Valiant type climbed the ranking, and may even climb further in years to come, because while I lost interest in types I mentioned before, I also gained more interest in Ghost Pokemon, and they gave me a lot more reason to enjoy their existence. When making this list, I wasn't sure whether to put Ghost or Dark here. I resorted to the type matchup chart, and I quickly realised that Ghost is easier the better candidate. The type has 2 immunities. That alone splashes every other typing for being unique in its own right. Not to mention it gets the dragon treatment of being able to counter itself, but with the improvement of being able to counter all the powerful Psychic types out there too. If it was given one more typing that it had the advantage over than just Psychic and Ghost, I could see it being a Pokemon type that was on my top 10. Moving on to Grass, and it's a decent type. One of the 3 elemental starting decisions you'll make. I know I've had fun using Grass starters in my playthrough. I love seeing the beautiful nature of Grass Pokemon displayed in the anime, and the way the grassy landscapes feature nature and Pokemon together as one really represents the harmony of both Pokemon and their habitat. Grass Pokemon designs also flourish with different aspects of plant life too, when finding features such as leaves, flowers and branches in their design. Even the Pokemon themselves can be the embodiment of nature by looking at the plant they are designed off of. This makes my love for the type grow even more. There are however drawbacks that hinder this typing from making it into the top 10 on this list, and it mainly falls into their strengths and weaknesses. 5 different types are super effective against it. Tying it with Rock is the most amount of weaknesses of an individual type. Offensively, it does well against 3 types, but when Water type can do the same job near enough, with less worry for how many types it resists. It's just a shame Grass types get the short end of the stick, with 7 types being able to resist the Grass move. Here we are, top 10. In side kicking off we have Psychic. The lore behind the Psychic type is linked to space, and how the human mind is meant to represent why Psychic is weak to human fears. It's something that has always interested me. See, humans are commonly scared to bugs, ghosts and the dark, so having this type being weak to 3 types when it could have been weak to more types is fair in my eyes. It may not be the best counter of multiple types, as it's only good against fighting and poison, but pre-Gen 6, poison and fighting only had one other weakness. This meant housing a Psychic type on your team was beneficial of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, or in this case, hitting a fighting or poison type with 1 Pokemon. Also, when thinking about Psychic, I think about things like Mewtwo, Alakazam, Espeon, and a whole lot more. All incredible Pokemon that were seriously tough opponents to overcome, or your aces on a team. Scurrying its way next is the type that reminds me never to underestimate the little guys. Bugs usually form in a mass to survive, but when it comes to Pokemon there are definitely big bug powerhouses that can stand their own ground. It's awesome to think the Pokemon concept was created all thanks to the fascination the creator Satoshi had with bug collecting. The designs alone tell us that he definitely educated himself with many bug species. For me, I also enjoy bugs in the real world, unless they're houseflies, in which I seriously hate them with great passion. Bugs are definitely interesting, and I hope to learn more about new species in the years to come. Although at the other end of the spectrum is what the type represents on a competitive scale. This is something I'm not too keen on, which loses it some interest. It's super effective against 3 types, which is standard. However, like grass type, 7 types resist bug, which is a big no-no in my books. That effectively makes my interest for this type below average. Now Rock is where the list picks up the pace, and is where I begin to like every type now mentioned. It's a solid type and is usually the first big challenge when playing through any game. Pokemon Go is a huge branch as to where my love for rock types increased. Moltres, Ho-Oh, and other fire and flying types were a huge threat when I was starting getting more involved in the game. I was informed that Chateau would be the best ever rock attacker after its community day, so during the event I was stacked with insane rock counters. After that, my armies just got better and better with the addition of Rampardos and Ralperia and other rock types. I like the idea of all the fossil Pokemon and how to obtain them in their respective regions, in addition to something intriguing I discovered. I found out that if there was a Pokemon with every type, it would only have one weakness to rock. I don't know about you guys, but this fascinates me. As a typing, it's awesome that it can counter 4 types, but it kinda sucks that 5 types can counter it. What's not to like about ground types? It's the only type that's super effective against electric, as well as being an awesome counter to 4 other types. Defensively, it has 2 resistances and immunity, which is decent, but it's the immunity to electric that I admire the most. Finally, it gets Stab Earthquake, which is brilliant enough, but when combined with another type, it can become an incredible asset to any team. I'm also really fond of the idea of freely being able to explore underneath the Earth's crust. Anything can be discovered underground, and with a ground type, that excavation is as good as done. I also enjoyed watching the Sinnoh anime, and particularly when the main cast had a nice selection of ground types that offered interesting battles, but was soon heartbroken when the Unova anime did the ground types dirty. At least Crocodile was enough to redeem the type from suffering too badly. Now, things are really starting to heat up because Fire is such an awesome type. The Fire starters are awesome and their final stages are definitely fan favourite. Fire tears through any grass, ice, bug and steel type, and can take damage that's dished out to it by 6 different types. With a range of different powerful fire type moves, if you somehow don't have a fire Pokemon in your team, you can usually counter a fire move as backup. Besides its virtual game utilities, seeing any fire Pokemon in the anime can almost guarantee that the battle is really going to heat up. Just look at some of Charizard, Infernape's and Incineroar's battles and try telling me otherwise. Seriously, the way fire moves are displayed in the anime, and the heated nature of the Pokemon behind the moves, just makes me love seeing the battles again and again and again. If you thought I went crazy with how fire is managed in the anime, then know that electric charges its way onto next on this list for similar reasons, but with edges that just cuts ahead of fire. Watching Pikachu over every series of the show is amazing to witness when this cute mousy boy is able to do some serious damage to its opponents. Watching a class of electric moves is exhilarating, and the visuals that are shown, especially in the newer series, really puts me on the edge. It's because when Pikachu delivers the electric move, it'll either be the final blow, a counter strategy, or just something spectacular to see with my own eyes. Electric Pokemon designs are incredible too when their tails, their patterns, and their features can all be implemented into a design with brilliant end results. Competitively, there are a few flaws too. It's the only other type besides grass that can deal out some serious damage to water, and because of my disregard for ice, it's the type that I usually counter flying with if I don't already have a rock type on my team or a Pokemon that has rock type moves. It resists 3 types, which is about average, but the selling point is that it only has 1 weakness to ground. If this thing levitates or has an air balloon, then nothing is going to hit with a super effective move. Cooling down now, let's introduce the water type. It's the final type of the starter trio I haven't mentioned yet, and and what puts it above all the other two types is the vast amount of water types there are out there. In the Pokemon world, they highlight the water areas with some of the most amazing schools of water Pokemon, and really immerse you in the world when combined with flying Pokemon and the Pokemon you see running across the fields. Since water types make up the greatest amount of Pokemon species, it's hard to avoid them in any given region. If you didn't pick a water starter Pokemon, then chances are you'll just find another water type around the corner. It's a pretty good go-to type when trying to form a team of 6. I enjoy using water type moves to take care of any fire, rock and ground type Pokemon I encounter. Additionally, when I go up against another opponent, I only have to worry about 2 types being grass and electric. This is a small price to pay when I know that I resist 4 types. Getting into the top 3 now, and as I've mentioned before, I love how the Pokemon world displays flying types. They're so elegant flying around in the sky and really create awesome scenery when doing shots from above. Also, just the thought about being able to fly is something that occurs to me from time to time, and while it wouldn't be my preferred superpower to have, it's an alright power to possess and try out. Moreover, like the water type, unavoidable HM usage such as Surf or Fly were essential to progress through the older games, so while I'd have a Surfer on my team, I'd also save a slot for my Flyer. The only reason Flying is more favoured is because Surf was only needed for a limited time. Once you could access the area of Surf, you were able to fly to it, meaning I used Fly a lot more than I did Surf. Fairly straightforward on the type matchup side of things. Good against 3 types, bad against 3 types. Vulnerable to 3 types and resist 3 types, with the awkward immunity to ground ruining the streak of 3 it has going for itself. Runner-up is the fighting type, and boy do I love this type. They say the best defense is a great offense, and how could I argue with that when there are plenty of powerful fighting types with very high attack stat? Knowing many opponents will be one-shot with a great fighting type is just one of the many reasons I aim to put a fighting type on my team. Spread the move types out to get 4 different attacking moves, and I get a brilliant counter to whatever my opponent has to offer. I just love its capability in battle too. It's the only type to get super effective hits on the many normal types there are out there, as well as being able to do some serious damage to 4 other types. It may not be able to touch ghosts, or do well against 5 types, but give it a rock and ghost type move, and it'll be one of your most loyal members on a team. Remember when I was saying that the best defense is a good offense? Well, steel typing is at the top of my list because for me, the best defense is an even greater defense than your opponent. This typing is broken, and thanks to the fairy type being introduced, I have even more love for this type than I already did to effectively bury any other type from getting to the top. Seriously, the steel typing stat-wise usually results in Pokemon with really high defense stats that can tank several moves before going down. You better have a nuke of a Pokemon if you want to take out this type. This Pokemon better be fire, fighting or ground too, because with a grand total of 10 resistances and 1 immunity, it's going to be really difficult trying to find the right move for the job, not to mention how it fares offensively. One of the 2 counters to fairy typing, making it an important type to say the least, as well as providing some super effective damage to the sturdy ice and rock types out there. It's a shame it's not super effective against 1 more type, or how 4 types resist it when it could have been 1 less, otherwise this typing would have been too broken, but I wouldn't have complained. So there we have it, my ranking of every Pokemon type. Out of the 18 types you can only have a maximum of 12 in your team, so shuffling between your favourite ones could be interesting. It may end in something you never expected working out for you. Combining the top 3 types could create some real cool concepts for Pokemon. Either Lucario with wings that can fly, a Skarmory who's more of an aggressive fighter, or an evolution to Hawlucha with mechanical armour. They would all be awesome to see and use. Let me know what you thought of the list, and how you would change it, and hopefully I'll catch you later in my next video.